I'm back. Happy Friday Eve.
Listen, we are so glad you guys are tuning in to the village. Again, we're going to continue our conversation about bullying in the workplace. And October is National Bullying Prevention Month. And so on Tuesday, we had a wonderful conversation with my girl, Tammy O'Donnell, who shared with us some strategies and tips and great advice on how to deal with bullying principles. So all of our teachers, we just thank you so much for tuning in. And also, adding to the conversation because it's such a vital, important topic.
Yes.
Because we're trying to build a collaborative school culture. And unfortunately, some schools are dealing with toxic culture where their principals are bullying their
They're not gonna bully me.
this one here. Okay, so we're gonna do part two of bullying in the workplace and specifically focusing on our teachers who are being bullied by their principals. Again, tune in, give your comments and all that good stuff. We're gonna talk about it.
This is a juicy one, y'all.
Yes. Now, I'm your girl, Dr. Gas, Dr. Five, CEO and founder of the Village Leadership Group, LLC, and my girl.
I'm Coach Williams. I am one of the instructional coaches for the village, and I'm so glad to be back, y'all.
Right. So, listen, I'm glad you're back. Because I need some help. So listen, guys, we come together right here on Facebook every Tuesday and Thursday to serve you guys. Why? Because we believe teacher leadership is a mindset and not a position. So we come here to pour into our teachers. We want to encourage you, inspire you, motivate you to be the best teacher leader ever. Okay? So that's what we're all about. So again, guys, welcome and join the discussion. But look, it's not just us. We have an exciting guest with us today, and we're going to bring on our special guest, Ms. Cheryl Jackson-Darden. Welcome to the village, Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
We are glad to have you.
Glad to have you. Now, I know who you are. I mean, you kind of my favorite. Of course, I know who you are. But you are an HR specialist, professional developer, trainer, coach, CEO of your own business, and a consultant.
And the list goes
And the list goes on. So thank you for joining our discussion because teachers and educators, we need to reach out and reach beyond just the four walls of within education to learn. So we're learning from an HR specialist when we're talking about bullying in the workplace. So Cheryl, introduce yourself to the village and tell folks about you.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. As Rosalind mentioned, I'm Cheryl Jackson-Darden, CEO of Leaders by Design Consultant, LLC. I also have over 20 years of experience in human resources profession. I can tell you firsthand that I have seen bullying in the workplace and I have experienced it. So I'm going to share a lot with you today. Please feel free to ask questions as we go along and just really make this a discussion. But this is a topic that is difficult for a lot of people, especially when you're in the workplace. You know you have to make that money because you have to pay bills and you don't want to put your job in jeopardy, but yet you don't want to feel like you're locked in to a situation and an environment that's not healthy for you physically or emotionally.
Right.
So,
Cheryl,
I was just going to go, Rosalind. You can go ahead.
Okay, go right ahead. But I just wanted to say, thank you, Cheryl, so much for joining the village. We serve educators, and you're not in education. But like I said before, we want to reach out to all experts in all fields when we're trying to brush up and fine tune our skills as leaders. So this is an important topic, and so we wanted to invite our HR specialist to give us some more strategies. So
Help us out, girl.
help us out, Cheryl.
I will. And I have an appreciation of educators. My mother is a retired teacher of 35 years. And I know for educators, human resources and bullying is not something you focus on because your whole focus is on the kids, making sure the kids get what they need. And sometimes that is at the expense of yourself. So I want you to take some of these nuggets away to know that you still have to protect yourself and preserve yourself in order to be there for the kids. So today's objectives, we're going to define workplace bullying. We're going to recognize some characteristics of workplace bullying, and then we're going to identify some response strategies to workplace bullying if you have experienced it. So that takes me to a couple of polling questions. And I don't know, Rosalind, how you want them to respond. But the first
In the
question is,
comments.
what did you say?
They can respond in the comments.
Okay, I can't see them, so you guys can let me know.
Got you.
Okay.
Okay, but the first question is, have you been or are you currently the target of workplace bullying? Bullying. The next question is, how do you know you have experienced workplace bullying? And then, have you been a witness to bullying behaviors at your workplace? And I'm going to give you a moment to respond to that. And maybe Rosalind and Arnice, you can kind of give me some feedback to what you're seeing, and I'll respond before we proceed.
All right, so we just gonna keep on going, but I can answer the question. Yes.
What kind of?
Yes.
And yes.
Yes, yes, and yes. Okay, so we on the right path. Okay, all right. So just to let you know that it's not an uncommon situation, and you're not alone. According to the Workplace Bullying Institute report in 2017, here are some of the statistics that I found. 61% of bullies are bosses who operate alone. 61% of employees are aware of abusive conduct happening in the workplace. We know things are happening every day, and sometimes we report and sometimes we don't. Approximately 19% have experienced it, and another 19% have witnessed it. And then 29% of victims remain in silence. Can you imagine that? That you're in a hostile work environment and you say absolutely nothing, and you have to go to work every single day and see these same people. And then 65% of bullied employees lose their jobs. And we're going to talk about how that happens later on in this in our discussion. And 80% of women bully other women. Is that a surprise to anybody?
Not a surprise.
But you know what? It's not a surprise, but it is disheartening. As you think about all these women movements and how we should look out and empower one another. We're all trying, especially in education, we're there for the kids. It's a service. And to know that other women are putting women in a situation, a lot of situations or issues that are unique to women. You think about all the things we're going through. Think about this month, this breast cancer awareness. Can you imagine going through something and then having to also contend with a toxic environment? These statistics have me going crazy. I wanted to comment really quick. We have, I think it's LaShonda, I'm trying to see. She was like, it's not just us this experiencing this bullying and seeing this bullying happening. So, everybody sees this. It's like you said that one of the statistics, people see it and then don't say anything.
Right. Thank you for your comment, both the comments. And I want to kind of address that. You think about 80% of women bully women. The majority of the workforce consists of women. And in education, of course, there are majority of women. And we have to really learn how to treat each other and really be in partnership, especially in the workforce. And then something else someone else just stated, you said that everybody is affected. In education, children follow what they see. So if they see the adults who are teaching them, who are their mentors, who are the examples bullying each other or being rude and disruptive, they follow along in that behavior. So these are just some statistics to consider. And I'm sure you all have seen this one day or another in the workplace. So define workplace bullying. So we can define it a couple of ways. Workplace bullying is repeated health harming mistreatment of one or more persons, the targets, by one or more perpetrators. It is abusive conduct that is threatening, humiliating, or intimidating, or work interference that is sabotage, which prevents work from getting done. Now, I want to stop right there for a little bit, because people who bully, they don't care about the work getting done.
No.
If you notice, they will stop a whole project just to prove their points or just to put you down. Right. That happens more than often. So most of the time, people who bully are not the most productive individuals in the workplace. I just wanted to highlight that one. And then workplace,
say that
most
again,
of the time,
they heard you, Cheryl. that was a gem right there.
Yeah,
Say that
most of
again.
the time, those who have time, look, and I'll add this too. Most of the people who have time to bully are not the productive ones in the workplace. They
I'm
are
not.
not.
I'm not even gonna say nothing. I'm a put it in a lock and put it in my pocket.
Right, right. And then workplace bullying has been found to occur about 4 times more often than even sexual harassment. And get this, even more than racial discrimination. Harassing people and bullying people happens more than these two situations. And that's a sad case that we're in today's workforce. And we
I'm
wonder
so
why
glad
people
you.
don't want to
Oh,
go
I'm
back to
sorry,
work and they
Cheryl.
prefer
I'm just
teleworking,
hopping on
right?
every word you say because that right there, a lot of times we deal a lot with trainings. You think about all the trainings you have to go through at the beginning of maybe the school year for us, but when other people go into their employment, and they spend a lot of time on sexual harassment, and that bullying it's they kind of slide that in there, like they slide into the DMs, but they slide it in it just a little bit, but it's not. You don't think about these statistics. Wow.
No, you don't, Arnice. You don't think about it. And from a human resources perspective, it is a lot of human resources professionals, ironically, are not trained to handle bullying in the workplace because a lot of times in the policies and procedures, it's not clearly defined what bullying is. It's hard to really capture bullying. But I'm going to give you some tips throughout this presentation. Bullying is
Ooh, can't
something that
wait.
has to be tracked, and you have to prove that through a
Right.
series of events. So I'm going to share some of the things that you need to watch out for later on from a human resources perspective.
Okay.
So one thing is, why do people bully? They're in intimidation. They want to intimidate you. They may be stressed or under pressure. They may have some insecurities. Most of the time, when people bully you or try to put you down, it's because they're not satisfied with themselves. And then they either dislike you or there's some form of discrimination that they have against you. And that could be racial, gender, etc. Sometimes they don't like you because they have limited knowledge or skills and they're jealous of the skills and the talent that you bring to the table. So when you feel like someone's bullying you or you start to see that behavior, kind of analyze your relationship with that person, whether it's your supervisor or whether it's your peer, because bullying doesn't always have to happen from top down. It can happen from those that work right with you every single day, and they're your colleagues and your peers. So when you look at it, also analyze the relationships that you have and the root of the problem.
Mm.
So
That
this
sounds
is
like
a
a tip
graph.
right there.
Go ahead, go ahead,
I
go
was
ahead.
saying that's a tip right there. You don't think about bullying is an emotion. It takes a toll on you. But a lot of times when you're in that situation and you're being bullied, it's hard for you to think about that person who is doing the act. You don't want to think about the root cause. You want to think about how to get them off your case because you're in a stressful environment. But you don't think, are they doing this out of stress? What are they seeing maybe in me that they want to emulate? I really feel like I'm the bomb.com. So that's probably that's why they're gonna bully me. But you don't really have that, I want to say, compassion, I guess, for the other person just because they're showing out like a toddler,
Right.
acting
Mhm.
out.
You just want to end the bullying.
Right.
Like let's get to
Let's
the outcome of it.
yeah,
You
stop.
don't want to know why. So, but it's good to kind of reflect and think
Yeah.
about your relationships with your
Yes.
boss and your colleagues. But again, we want to keep going and learn tips on how to resolve.
Absolutely,
Can't wait
absolutely.
for
And
these tips.
Arnice, you brought something up about training. We don't receive the training on
Right.
bullying. That's not the training we get. The annual training you have to finish at the end of the year or be at the
Right.
beginning of the year. Bullying is not really included in that. We see the sexual
Yep.
harassment. We see workplace safety. We see
Hmm.
random active shooter videos that we have to watch.
Cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity of exactly, but bullying and how people can intimidate and isolate you is something that's totally different, but it happens more than often in the workplace.
Right.
And this graphic right here that I pulled from the Crisis Prevention Institute just shows the continuum of behaviors that leads to workforce violence. Sometimes employers ignore the beginning phases. They ignore the discourtesy, they ignore the disrespect, they ignore profanity, they ignore the intimidation and the harassment, they even ignore the retaliation.
Don't be
And
triggered.
we all know we have whistleblowers. The Whistleblowers Act protects us when we actually tell the truth about
Right.
situations. It protects us from retaliation. But a lot of employers don't know how to manage that piece. And unfortunately, you have that verbal assault and you have physical aggression, which are the two situations that we don't want to happen in the workplace. Some cultures have verbal assault. Some in some workplaces, and I will use this as an example. The Marine Corps, that is a culture of cussing. And someone who's outside of that environment will find it hostile. For the people who
Right.
are in, that's a norm for them. But you have to know where you want to be. And that's why it's always good for you to kind of analyze the environment, the work environment and culture
Right.
before you decide to work with them. Or you may have to make some changes. You may have to make some changes. So this is a good diagram to see that things start at a very low level and is very subtle, that can escalate to a physical aggression. Now, this is where HR teams are held accountable. And if you don't report, there's no documentation. And we're going to talk about that. It is important for you to report those situations of disrespect, of
Right.
intimidation. And I'll use myself as an example here. Um, I have filed grievances against supervisors. I filed grievances against my supervisors. I have filed EEO claims, and I continued to work in those environments. And you may say, well, how in the world did you do that?
Right.
Well, I focused on making sure I understood the policy, because policy is built not just to get people in trouble, but it's also built to protect employees as well. So I understood the policy and I was brave enough to call people out on it. And that's really the bottom line. You have to get to a point where enough is enough, and you have to let people know there is a process and you still want to be professional in your communication.
Yes.
But by not telling people what's happening is a disservice to you, and it's also a disservice to the entire work environment. Because, like you said, Arnice, it's not just you that's experiencing it, it's the other people around you in the office and in the work environment that know what's happening and what's going on. So it's not siloed.
Hey Cheryl, I know you're gonna get me, but I love I want to get to the tips. I want to hear this because I want to take these notes. Girl. Because but honestly, I really feel like you've kind of gone over some tips, like knowing the policy.
You have to know your rights
Yeah.
because you can't advocate for yourself. You don't know the policy. You don't know your rights. And that's something that we're so long or share with us on Tuesday.
Right.
Exactly.
When, representing unions, she said, you know your rights. And I like what you're saying, Sean. When you don't speak up, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to that person, to that leader, who may not know that they are crossing in boundaries.
Hmm.
And they need to improve their leadership skills as well.
Right.
So again, give them some feedback and say, hey, I find it very disrespectful when you curse or when you yell. Your tone is a little intimidating right now. Again, giving that leader feedback can improve their leadership skills
Right.
and improve the culture of that school. So again, teachers, set your boundaries and give your personal feedback to build a community. Go
That's
ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Roz, girl. Okay, so if it's hard for you to detect bullying in the workplace, I have here a comparison what bullying is and what bullying is not. Bullying is incivility that is pervasive and ongoing. It's a power difference. This exists where the behavior of one person is able to control another or influence another. How many times have you been in the workplace and someone has invited everyone else to a meeting except for you, and it
mm,
becomes a norm? How many times have you had an idea that has been shut down? That, and then 2 weeks later, they come back to the very idea that you had.
Calm down.
Okay.
I'm feeling really triggered right now.
Right. So these are some of the things that you want to notice. Bullying is an absence of consent. You want to make sure that consent is there when you're doing something, or when your supervisor or when your peers want you to do something. It's not just they throw something at you and expect you to make the most of it. Now, we all know we have deadlines. We all know there's situations that happen, but in a cohesive, healthy workspace, they have to understand, and I say they, whether it's your peers or your supervisor, they need to bring you in. It's about collaboration. And we see that all the time in our handbooks and when we are writing things down: teamwork, cohesiveness, collaboration. But when it really comes down to it, sometimes they ignore that consent piece. They ignore bringing you to the table and making us a part of the solution process. That is a form of bullying. Okay.
Right.
And then an intent to harm or manipulate. Now, this is where sometimes I get foggy. I just started a new position with the federal government, and so I'm building relationships. I'm learning people. And so my first reaction could be that, okay, this person is trying to not let me know what's happening, because they don't want me to succeed. Although, me, I'm going to find out anyway. So
Right.
whether they let me know or not, I'm going to find out. But it's almost like an art of manipulation to keep Cheryl out of the circle so that she won't know, or don't tell her about a meeting that she's supposed to be at. So what I say to that, and I say this to some people who feel like they don't have to do all that. If you are in this type of environment, you have to do everything to know what's going on. You
Yeah.
have to over communicate sometimes. You may have to send follow-up emails just to show
Stop
how,
thinking.
just to let them show themselves. That
Right.
will let you know if a person is really bullying you, if they're trying to manipulate you. If they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot you," and then they change their behaviors, then fine. But if they continue, they're showing you who they are.
They sure
So
are.
you may have to over communicate to find out, meet with them more, to learn about them, to see what their true intent is. Now, bullying is not a solitary or occasional incident involving an angry outburst. That's not it. It's casual. It's casual thing. It's not a difference in personality, style, or personal taste. And it's also guidance or direction from authority figures. It's not guidance or direction from authority figures. I have been a supervisor. I manage a lot of things. And a lot of my people will say, "Oh, Cheryl knows what she wants." But one thing, I make sure my people have what they need to make it happen. It doesn't mean that we don't get the work done. Bullying is not that. You still have to do the work. You still have to follow through with the
Exactly.
guidance. That's still there. I always tell people, even if I don't like my supervisor, I respect their position and I'm going to
Right.
do what I need to do. So these are just some comparisons so you'll understand what bullying is and what bullying is not.
Gotcha. Yep.
So she's talking. She said, "Talk to the hand." Now, I wouldn't recommend you do that. Don't put your hand out at
Don't
anybody.
talk to me. I've had enough.
but I know sometimes we feel like doing that, right? We feel like doing that when people are coming at us and they're coming at us
Uh-huh.
wrong. We feel like doing that. Do that after they leave the door, after they walk out. Then you can
And
do
put your
that.
hand up.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Praise them. Praise them. Yeah. so so how you can fight workplace bullying? First of all, address the situation head on. And I know this is the hardest thing, because sometimes we would go to the side, or we would come home, we would call our husbands, we would call
Right.
our friends and tell them all about what's happening at work, but they can't solve the problem. You have to go to that person. Always start at the lowest level. Have a face-to-face conversation with them and tell them how what they did offended you and what form of communication you prefer. They will show you themselves. Okay. There is a chain of command in every organization. Take it up the chain if behaviors do not change. The next recommendation I would give you is to confide in a trusted confidant. That could be a person at work, or a person in another school, or an administrator, or someone outside of education totally. Find someone you can talk to. Find a human resources professional who can tell you the rules of the game
Get him.
and advise you. Find a lawyer. I have done these things. Find a lawyer that you can talk to, a trusted confidant that you can share things with and get some good guidance. Um, Document every detail, big and small. Now, let me tell y'all something. I'm not a lawyer, but I told you all that I have filed EEO claims. Can I tell you, I have folders in my computer with documents. I have MP3 recordings. I have folders down here in my cabinet that if I decided to take some of these employers to court, I could. And the reason why I took those steps is because when you're in a bullying situation and we know we have to go to work, you have to have some protection
Yeah.
for them not to do whatever they want to do. Trust me, they want to push you out if they are bullying you. That's a fact. If they are bullying you, they don't want you there. I have had a situation where I was called in on a day off to come into the office and wanted to talk about a project and why one step of the project did not happen. It was just me, my supervisor, and then it was his supervisor. None of the other team players who were responsible for certain things were in this meeting. So I came into the office, and as soon as my supervisor started talking, and I saw that it was going left, I said, "Can we hold for just 1 minute? I feel that I need to record this meeting because I need some protection here. It's two of you, and it's one of me, and I need this conversation recorded." I went on my cell phone. You can actually download a tape recorder on your phone, and I played it, and I said today's date and what time it was and who was in the meeting, and I put it down and I recorded it. And you know what happened? She walked out.
Yeah.
She walked out because she knew everything that she was about to say to me, she was going to be held accountable for it.
Exactly.
So sometimes you have to make those stands where people know they cannot.
Right.
They cannot. And this was a racial discrimination issue with me. It could be any type of discrimination coming forth. You have to know how to protect yourself and document accordingly. I have sent things to the employee relations, and I'm sure your offices have employee relations. They may have a grievance department where you can take formal grievances through and even have a judge preside over that case. You can also go outside of your agency to federal government, which is the EEO, and you can file an EEOC that will go to your employer citing the case. You can also take it to the AIG's office for the state of Maryland if
Hold
you
up. We
feel
done
as
made
though
all these
that is a form of discrimination. Yeah. So you have some
You have steps. Right.
tools
You have
that that you can fight this battle with. And trust me, one thing people don't want, especially those who work in government and agencies, don't want. They do not want their names in the political chain. They do not
and
want that. So
I'll get
so those are just some tips that you could use and have as an arsenal. The next thing, make sure you know and understand.
real quick,
Okay,
Cheryl.
go ahead.
I was going to say this. What I'm getting from this is not only documentation, but it seemed like a bully is scared of a little tape recorder. A bully is scared of
Yeah.
documentation. A
Yeah.
bully is scared of you knowing your rights, your options.
Yep.
They
So-
want you to stay quiet.
Right.
And not tell anyone to share. So again, like what Mr. Donald was saying, he said, talk to your supervisor, talk to someone else. You have to tell, talk
Yeah.
and advocate for yourself. And tell someone.
So don't be scared of a bully because they really scared of you.
No. Just think you're out at the school. Remember when you were in school and you had a bully? And this was the only fight I had. I had this little boy named Frankie pushed me off the monkey bars. And that was the only time I ever fought. I got off that floor and I whooped him. And that was the only time. That was my only fight. But you know what? He never touched me again. He never touched me again. So documenting is so important. And then the next thing, know and understand the policies. Know your employee handbook. Know the policies that your leaders are held accountable to. Know the state policies and know the federal policies. Know them. You have to take the time to protect yourself. And if you are part of a teachers union, also utilize them as well.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sure.
Right. We wrapping
So
up.
don't feel like you're in this alone. And you know what?
Bring
Teachers,
it
let me
home,
say
girl.
something.
Bring it home.
Let me say something to the teachers now.
Okay.
Teachers, you have the clout route right now. Because you know
Mm.
why? We need our children educated. And most of the people who are going to college now, they're not going for education. So, you know, it would behoove them to take care of you as educators so
Right.
that you can stay in the game and help to get our youth and our country where it needs to be because we're so far behind the curve in education because they don't put the money and the time and the effort into our teachers and our educators. So, yeah. What were you going to say, Arnice?
No, that's we were just saying that we were wrapping up, but I think that's the perfect that's the perfect piece.
We're wrapping up, Rosalind.
Go ahead, girl.
Okay, so I didn't have the scenarios. I didn't have a chance to go through the scenarios, but
Well,
Rosalind will
if there
share
is no
these.
scenario, anyway, we talked about a lot of situations where teachers again can recognize if they're being bullied and how to respond. That was good.
Okay.
All right, so Cheryl, again, thank you for being with the village today.
Yes.
And again, you're my husband, so if I need you, I can just pick up the phone and call you. But for the other teachers and other folks who are joining the village, they want to get in touch with Leaders by Design. What other services do you provide and how can they reach out?
Okay, so I have them on the screen. So I do career consultation and coaching, small business consultation, specifically with human resources management, and then corporate training, consultation, leadership development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as executive searching and staffing, which is more like recruiting for employers. So those are my specialties.
Awesome, awesome.
Just those little bit of special.
Just those things. So again, thank you, Cheryl, so much for joining the village, and thank you for giving them all those strategies and tips for how to respond to workplace bullying, specifically how to deal with the bully punishment.
Mm.
Cool. All
Mhm.
right, we want to make sure
Or
that
colleagues.
colleagues, we want to make sure that our schools are collaborative. They have positive culture environment for our students. It's all about our students, guys. In those toxic environments, our students are suffering. They're the ones who are going to have the most impact if we can't get ourselves together. Okay, so again, thank you so much.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Whew, that was a lot.
That was a lot, but it was good.
It was good.
I'm gonna hit her up because it was like all the steps and the AGP and the
Okay,
OPP.
okay, okay.
Okay, but we got
And
it.
anyway, thanks guys for joining the village again. We appreciate you tuning in on Tuesday and Thursdays. Continue to follow us on